A little girl lived alone under a bridge, covered in cardboard and with a one-eyed teddy bear she called Brother. But when she found a lost briefcase full of money, she did what no one would expect from an abandoned child. What happened when she decided to return the fortune to the blind millionaire would forever change both of their destinies. Subscribe to the channel for heartwarming stories every day. At the top of the city's most imposing skyscraper, the millionaire adjusted the dark glasses that covered his lifeless eyes. His sensitive fingers traced the raised dots of the report that his assistant had just handed him. It was another day of exorbitant profits, another day the financial empire grew, another day as empty as all the others. The glass and steel office seemed to float above the city, a fortress of solitude. He didn't need to see to know what it was like. He had memorized every inch of that antiseptic space he called his own. The walls were devoid of any human warmth, just diplomas and certificates that he couldn't see, but knew were there to impress others. "Any changes to the charity project numbers?" he asked in a cold voice, showing no real interest. "Everything as planned, sir. The transfer to the children's shelter will be made today in cash as you requested. No publicity, no paper trail." He nodded. He didn't want recognition. He didn't want cameras. He just wanted to fulfill a promise made long ago to someone who no longer existed. Meanwhile, miles away and worlds socially below, the little beggar girl trembled under cardboard boxes, soaked by the fine drizzle that had been falling relentlessly since dawn. The concrete bridge above her head provided little protection from the biting wind of that cruel winter. Her tiny fingers, hardened by the cold, clutched a battered teddy bear to her chest, with one eye hanging by a thread and the other completely missing. "We'll find food today, brother," she whispered to the toy, her only companion in the nights of loneliness and fear. "I promise we won't go to sleep hungry again." Her tangled hair stuck to her thin, pale face, marked by dark circles. Too deep for such a small child. She wasn't sure how old she was, 6, maybe 7 years old. Time passed differently on the streets, measured in daily survivals, not in calendars. The girl gathered her few possessions, the teddy bear, a torn blanket, and a small metal box, where she kept a shiny button and a torn photo that showed only someone's arm hugging her. She didn't remember whose arm it was, but she held it tight to her chest on the darkest nights when nightmares came to get her. With light steps, she left her makeshift shelter and walked into the waking city. The hurried workers barely noticed the small shadow that slipped between them. She was invisible to the world that revolved around money, deadlines, and ambitions. In the skyscraper office, the millionaire got up and walked to the window. His blind eyes couldn't see the city below, but he could feel it. Sometimes, in his dreams, he still saw colors and shapes. He dreamed of a face he had been trying to forget for years, of a voice that time had failed to erase from his memory. "Is everything prepared for the trip, sir?" asked the assistant, interrupting his thoughts. "Yes, just make sure the donation reaches the right hands today. It's important." The assistant nodded, watching his boss with a mixture of admiration and pity. No one really knew the man behind those dark glasses. The empire he commanded with surgical precision was just a facade for a life empty of real affection. The little beggar girl was rummaging through the first trash can of the day when her stomach growled painfully. It had been almost 24 hours since she had put anything in her mouth, a discarded half sandwich that she had shared with her teddy bear in an imaginary family meal ritual. "Soon, brother," she promised again, hugging the toy against her thin chest. "Today I feel like something good is going to happen." Little did she know how her simple words carried the prophecy that would forever change two lives, separated by a social chasm, but united by ties that time had failed to completely sever. The morning was advancing, icy cold, as the girl walked through Central Park, a place where wealthier people often left leftover food in the trash cans. Her bare feet left small, damp prints on the ground, soon erased by the persistent drizzle. The one-eyed teddy bear, her faithful companion, was safe under her torn shirt, protected from the dampness. On the other side of the city, the Millionaire's driver was carrying a black leather briefcase. Inside, organized in bundles, was the money destined for the children's shelter, an anonymous donation that his boss made religiously every year. On the same day, make sure to deliver it personally to the director with the Millionaire's precise instructions before his departure for an international conference. Incredibly, impossibly real. Meanwhile, at company headquarters, the driver was entering a state of desperation in the Millionaire's assistant's office. The briefcase, it's gone. I only stopped for 5 minutes. I swear I didn't leave it unattended. But when I came back, his voice trembled, knowing he had made an irreparable mistake. You lost $500,000. The assistant paled. The money for the children's shelter? How are we going to tell the boss? He's already boarded for Geneva. We can fix this before he returns, suggested the driver, desperate. The assistant shook her head. Impossible. We'll have to inform him. And you know how strict he is about this specific donation. It's the only time of year he seems to actually care about something. Under the bridge, the girl faced her own moral dilemma. In the harsh school of the streets, she had learned to survive on almost nothing. This money meant food, warm clothes, maybe even a place to sleep. It meant never going hungry again, never shivering in the winter nights again. We could buy food, brother, she whispered, stroking the worn teddy bear, and even a new eye for you. But something inside her, a nearly forgotten voice, an echo of better times, whispered insistently that this money didn't belong to her. Someone had lost it. Someone who, at this moment, was probably desperately looking for it. She closed the briefcase carefully, as if she were keeping not only money, but a crucial decision. With the teddy bear positioned in front of her, she seemed to be holding an important conference. We can't keep this, brother, she finally decided, her voice small but resolute in the silence of the shelter. It's not ours. On the private jet cutting through the skies towards Europe, the millionaire received the call he would never expect. The news about the disappearance of the briefcase with the donation was received with a silence that froze the soul of the assistant on the other end of the line. Cancel my appointments in Geneva, was his only response, his voice dangerously controlled. I'm coming back right now. There was something about that annual donation that went beyond simple charity. It was a promise, an expiation, a tribute to a memory that he refused to discuss, but that guided his actions like an invisible star. Under the bridge, oblivious to the drama unfolding in the skies, the girl made her own decision. She would drag that briefcase back to the city. She would ask every person, knock on every door if necessary. She would find the owner of that money. We're going to have to be brave, brother, she said, adjusting the teddy bear in her makeshift coat. Braver than ever. As dusk tinged the sky with orange hues, two souls separated by a social chasm moved towards an encounter that neither could foresee. An encounter that fate had meticulously planned, weaving the invisible threads that connect seemingly unrelated lives. The next morning dawned with a timid sun, as if nature itself hesitated to fully illuminate the city. The girl had slept little, the briefcase serving as a makeshift pillow under her head, not because it was comfortable, but because it was the only way to protect that treasure during the vulnerable night. Her plan was simple, and at the same time, dauntingly difficult, to go out on the streets and ask everyone she met about a lost briefcase. For a child accustomed to being invisible, the idea of approaching strangers was terrifying, but the determination in her little heart outweighed any fear. Today, we need to be visible, brother, she explained to the teddy bear, carefully positioning it in the torn pocket of her oversized coat. "People have to see us." Dragging the heavy briefcase, she began her journey through the downtown streets. The first attempts were discouraging. A man in a suit brushed her aside like an annoying insect. An elderly lady crossed the street to avoid her. A store security guard threatened her when she tried to approach the entrance. "Did you lose a briefcase, sir?" she asked in a trembling voice to each person who passed. The answers varied between scornful glances, deliberate ignorance, and occasional expressions of pity that did not translate into real help. To the world, she was just another street kid, dirty, unwanted, invisible. In the luxurious headquarters building of the corporation, the millionaire disembarked from his private helicopter, his face impassive behind his dark glasses. The news of the disappearance of the briefcase had touched a raw nerve that few knew existed in this apparently cold man. "I want a complete report," he demanded as soon as he stepped into his office, "every minute from when the briefcase left this building until the moment it disappeared." The driver, pale and trembling, recounted the events with painful details: the stop at the park, the conversation with the friend at the newsstand, the moment of distraction. No photos, no receipts, no paper trail. The driver nodded, placing the briefcase on the passenger seat of the luxury car. He checked his watch. He had time for a quick stop. He parked near Central Park, a place where he often met an old friend who worked at a newsstand, an innocent stop that would change the course of several lives. The girl was rummaging through a trash can when she spotted something that made her heart race: the remains of a sandwich, almost whole, wrapped in aluminum foil. Someone must have discarded their only partially consumed lunch. To her, it was a treasure. "Look, brother," she whispered to the teddy bear, pulling it out from under her shirt. "We're going to eat today." It was at that moment that her attentive eyes caught something unusual. A man in an impeccable suit was talking animatedly with a woman at a newsstand. Next to him, on a park bench, rested a black briefcase, momentarily forgotten. The girl hesitated, watching. The man gestured, laughed, completely absorbed in the conversation. The briefcase looked heavy and important. Her street survival instinct screamed for her to approach, not to steal, never to steal. The only lesson she kept from the vague memories of her life before the streets was that she should never take what didn't belong to her. But something about that briefcase drew her attention like a magnet. And when the man, in a sudden movement, to show something on his cell phone to the woman, moved a few steps away from the bench, leaving the briefcase momentarily unguarded, the girl approached. At the exact moment she got close to the bench, a noisy group of tourists passed between her and the man in the suit, creating a temporary human curtain. The man, distracted, checked his watch and went into the newsstand to buy something. Still, chatting animatedly, the girl touched the briefcase with trembling fingers. It was heavy, too heavy for her fragile arms, but something told her it was important. What if it had been abandoned? What if it was thrown away like so many good things she found in the trash? The decision was made in seconds. With an effort that made her muscles protest, she dragged the briefcase behind a nearby bush. No one noticed. The group of tourists went on their way, and the man remained inside the newsstand. "We're not stealing, brother," she explained to the teddy bear, breathing heavily from the effort. "We're just going to keep it safe until we find out who it belongs to." At company headquarters, the millionaire was about to board his private jet when he felt an unusual unease. Years of blindness had sharpened his other senses, including a kind of intuition that often surprised him. "Is everything all right, sir?" asked his personal assistant, noticing his sudden paleness. "Yes," he replied, hesitant, "just a strange feeling, nothing important." But it was important. At that very moment, the driver returned to the park bench and discovered with absolute horror that the briefcase containing a small fortune had disappeared. Panic took over his face as he frantically searched around, asking passers-by if they had seen anything. No one had seen anything. No one except a little beggar girl who was now struggling to drag her precious find to the only place she knew as home, the dark and damp space under the bridge. The girl's heart pounded against her protruding ribs as she dragged the heavy briefcase through the city's back alleys. Every few feet, she needed to stop to catch her breath, but she didn't give up. Something inside her, a primitive instinct for protection, told her that this object was too important to be left behind. "We're almost home, brother," she whispered to the teddy bear, adjusting it under her arm as she resumed her effort to pull the briefcase. Her small hands were already red and sore from the strain. When she finally reached her makeshift shelter, under the bridge, she hid the briefcase behind some stacked cardboard and sat down exhausted. Curiosity bubbled in her chest, but first she needed to make sure it was safe. With watchful eyes, she surveyed the surroundings for long minutes, making sure that no other homeless people had followed her. Satisfied with the momentary security, she pulled the briefcase into her lap. The gold clasps gleamed, even under the weak light that penetrated the dense clouds of that gray morning. "I wonder what's in here, brother," she asked the teddy bear, carefully positioning it to watch the discovery. Her small fingers wrestled with the sophisticated clasps until, with a satisfying click, the briefcase opened. What she saw inside made her eyes, normally dulled by the harshness of life, widen in absolute astonishment. Money. More money than she had ever seen in her entire short existence. Bills organized in perfect bundles, carefully stacked. She touched one of the bills. With reverence, as if expecting it to disappear upon contact, a fleeting dream too good to be true. But it was real. 5 minutes, he concluded, his voice almost inaudible. It was only 5 minutes. The millionaire remained silent for long seconds that seemed like an eternity to those present. When he finally spoke, his voice had a strangely contained quality. "Issue a press release. Offer a reward for its return. No questions asked, no consequences for whoever returns it." The assistant exchanged surprised glances with the driver. It was unprecedented. The millionaire always avoided publicity, especially related to his donations. The fact that he was willing to expose himself publicly demonstrated the unique importance of that money. On the streets, exhaustion began to weigh on the girl's small shoulders. She had walked for hours, the briefcase weighing more and more with no results. In the plaza, she sat down on a bench to rest briefly, the briefcase firmly secured between her thin arms. That's when she heard, coming from a small television at a nearby newsstand, something that made her heart leap. Repeating the breaking news, businessman and philanthropist, known for his reclusiveness and the blindness that befell him 6 years ago, is offering a reward for the return of a briefcase containing $500,000. The money was intended for a children's orphanage. The girl jumped up, squeezing the teddy bear against her chest. A mixture of relief and excitement washed over her. She finally knew who the money belonged to. But soon, reality set in. How could a dirty, ragged street child get to a powerful millionaire? "We have to try, brother," she decided, determined. "He needs this money to help kids like us." In the luxurious office of the skyscraper, the millionaire remained motionless by the window, his sensitive fingers touching the glass that separated him from the outside world. Despite his blindness, he could feel the weak sun trying to penetrate the clouds. "Why is this specific donation so important to you?" ventured the assistant, breaking the protocol of never questioning the boss's personal decisions. A heavy silence followed the question. When he finally answered, his voice carried an emotion rarely demonstrated. 6 years ago, on the same day I lost my sight, I lost something infinitely more precious. This donation is a promise I made To someone who is no longer here. The assistant asked no more. She didn't need to. For the first time, she glimpsed the human dimension behind the businessman's impenetrable facade. At the other end of the city, the little beggar girl dragged her precious cargo towards the financial district, where she knew the tallest skyscraper was located. The building where, according to the news, the headquarters of the blind millionaire's empire was located. The journey was exhausting for her short legs and malnourished body, but something inside her, a force she did not fully understand, drove her to continue. Each step was a conscious effort, each block a conquest. "We're almost there, brother," she whispered to the teddy bear, ignoring the hunger that twisted her stomach and the exhaustion that made her limbs tremble. Almost there. Two completely distinct worlds moved towards an inevitable collision. Soon, both their lives would change forever. The imposing mirrored building rose like a mountain of glass and steel before the little beggar girl. Exhausted, from the long walk dragging the heavy briefcase, she stopped on the opposite corner, trying to catch her breath while watching the movement of well-dressed people entering and leaving through the revolving doors of the financial empire's headquarters. "That's where he lives, brother," she whispered to the teddy bear, adjusting it in the torn pocket. "But how are we going to get in?" A knot formed in her throat as she observed the uniformed guards who monitored the entrance. For an adult, the security system would be just a standard procedure. For a street child, it was an insurmountable fortress. Gathering all the courage her small body could contain, the girl dragged the briefcase across the street. Each step was a battle against the fear that threatened to paralyze her. People rushed past, some casting curious or suspicious glances at the ragged child pulling a visibly expensive executive briefcase. When she finally reached the entrance of the building, the first guard noticed her presence. His face hardened instantly. "Hey kid, what do you think you're doing? This is no place for you." The girl swallowed hard, feeling her legs tremble. "I need to talk to the millionaire," she replied, her voice almost inaudible. "I found something that belongs to him." The guard exchanged glances with his colleague, and they both laughed. To them, it was just another creative attempt at begging. "Sure you did," he replied sarcastically, "and I found the keys to my yacht. Get out of here before I call social services." On the top floor of the building, the millionaire remained in his office, his fingers incessantly running over the braille reports on his desk. The loss of the briefcase with the donation tormented him more than any financial crisis he had ever faced. It wasn't just about the money, it was about the meaning, about the broken promise. "Any news about the briefcase?" he asked when his assistant entered the room silently. "Nothing yet, sir. The police are investigating, and the news of the reward is on every channel." He nodded, his impassive expression hiding the inner storm. "I need that donation to reach the shelter, today, even if we have to transfer another amount." At the entrance of the building, the girl refused to give up. With a determination that contradicted her fragile appearance, she tried to pass the guard, who stopped her with ease. "Please, it's important. His money for the children's shelter." Her words were broken, almost incoherent with nervousness and exhaustion. "Look, kid, whatever your game is, it's not going to work here. Last chance to leave on your own." It was at that moment that a third security guard, who was discreetly observing the scene, noticed something unusual. The briefcase that the child was dragging was not just any briefcase. It had the same exclusive design, with gold detailing, that he had seen in the hands of the millionaire's driver countless times. "Wait," he interjected, approaching cautiously. "Where did you get that briefcase?" The girl, sensing an opening, squeezed the teddy bear tightly. "I found it in the park. There's a lot of money inside. It's for kids like me, but without a home. I heard it on the radio at the newsstand." The security guard crouched down to be at the child's eye level. Are you saying this is Mr. CEO's lost briefcase? The one with the donation? She nodded vigorously, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I could have kept everything. I could have eaten for months, but it's not mine. The security guard hesitated for only a second before speaking into the radio attached to his shoulder. Central, I need someone from the executive office to come down immediately. I think we have the lost briefcase here, and you're not going to believe who brought it. In the executive suite, the assistant received the message with disbelief. Without wasting time, she went to the Millionaire's office. Sir, apparently a child is at the front desk with the briefcase. The millionaire turned sharply as if he could see through his blindness. A child? What child? The security guards say it's a street girl, small, ragged, carrying a teddy bear with only one eye. Something strange happened then. The millionaire's normally controlled expression transformed. An indefinable emotion crossed his face as his fingers gripped his cane tightly. Bring her. Up here immediately. The private elevator seemed like an alien world to the girl. She had never been in a space so clean, so fragrant, so different from everything she knew. Beside her, the millionaire's assistant watched with curiosity this small figure who, despite her miserable appearance, maintained a surprising dignity. What's your name? She finally asked. The girl hugged the teddy bear tighter. I don't know. My real name. On the street they call me Little One. But my brother here, she pointed to the toy, he's called Guardian. The assistant felt a lump in her throat. What kind of life had this child led to not even know her own name? And what extraordinary strength resided in that fragile little body to have resisted the temptation of $500,000 when she lived in absolute misery. When the elevator doors opened on the executive floor, the girl hesitated. The polished, marble hallway seemed too intimidating, but the heavy briefcase in her hands reminded her of her mission. With determined steps, she followed the assistant to the imposing dark wooden door at the end of the hall. Inside the room, the millionaire waited, his perpetually dark world stirred by an inexplicable unease. Why did that description, a little girl with a one-eyed teddy bear, provoke such a turmoil in his normally controlled chest? The door opened, and a childish voice, trembling but determined, broke the silence. I found your briefcase, sir. The money for the homeless children. The silence that settled in the luxurious office seemed alive, pulsating, charged with something indefinable. The millionaire remained motionless behind his desk, his dark glasses concealing any emotion that might be passing through his lifeless eyes. The girl, in turn, squeezed the teddy bear against her chest, as if seeking courage in the presence of that imposing man. Come closer, the millionaire finally said, his voice surprisingly gentle. The child took a few hesitant steps, dragging the heavy briefcase across the marble floor. The sound reverberated through the room, amplified by the expectant silence. Let me understand, he continued, tilting his head slightly in the direction of the sound. You found this briefcase and instead of keeping the money, you decided to return it? It wasn't mine, the girl replied simply, as if this were the most obvious thing in the world. It was to help homeless children. A shadow of a smile crossed the millionaire's lips. Something in that simple and honest answer touched a long dormant chord in his heart. May I? He hesitated, a rare gesture for someone habitually so confident. May I touch your face? The girl looked confused at the assistant, who nodded, encouragingly. Taking a few more steps forward, she positioned herself within reach of the man's hands. With surprising delicacy for someone so powerful, the millionaire reached out and touched the child's dirty little face. His sensitive fingers traced the delicate features, the small forehead, the thin eyebrows, the upturned nose, the contour of the lips. It was as if he were reading a story through that touch, deciphering a hidden enigma in the lines of that childish face. Suddenly his hands stopped. A stiffness took over his body, as if he had received an electric shock. "That teddy bear?" he asked, his voice now trembling. "May I touch it?" The girl, without understanding the sudden change, extended the worn toy. "He's guardian, my brother," she explained seriously. "He only has one eye, but he takes care of me anyway." The millionaire took the toy with reverence, his fingers exploring every inch of the worn fabric, the uneven stitching, the empty space where one of the eyes should be. When he reached a small patch on the bear's back, his breath caught. "This patch," he whispered, more to himself than to those present. "Heart-shaped." The assistant watched the scene with growing perplexity. She had never seen her boss demonstrate so much emotion, so much vulnerability. Something extraordinary was happening before her eyes, something that transcended the simple return of a lost briefcase. "Where did this teddy bear come from?" asked the millionaire, his voice now laden with a barely contained urgency. The girl shrugged her thin shoulders. "I've always had him, since before the bridge. Since before I was alone. And your parents? Where are your parents?" A painful silence followed the question. The girl lowered her head, nervously fidgeting with the torn hem of her blouse. "I don't remember very well," she finally replied. "I remember a woman who sang, who smelled like flowers. Then I remember a place with lots of beds, lots of kids. Then the street." The millionaire rose abruptly, startling both the girl and the assistant. With steps surprisingly sure for a blind man, he went to a small safe built into the wall, protected by a digital panel. "Sir," ventured the assistant, confused by the sudden change. Ignoring her, he entered a complex combination and opened the safe. From within, he removed a small, carved wooden box. His fingers caressed the polished surface, as if reliving painful memories, before opening it. "6 years ago," he began, his voice low and intense, "I loved a woman who everyone said wasn't worthy of my status. A kindergarten teacher with no fortune, no connections. When she became pregnant, my family did everything to separate us." The girl listened, mesmerized, without fully understanding the meaning of those words, but sensing instinctively their importance. "I had an accident the day she went into labor," he continued. "When I woke up in the hospital, I was already blind, and they told me that both she and the baby had died in childbirth." The assistant brought her hand to her mouth, beginning to understand the direction of that revelation. "But I never completely believed it," the millionaire went on, taking something out of the box. "They never found her body, and the only personal item they returned to me was this." In his trembling hands was a small black plastic eye, identical to the only one remaining on the girl's teddy bear. "The missing pair," he whispered, extending the small piece. "Guardian's eye." The girl watched the small object with fascination, recognizing it instantly. "It's the same. It's my brother's eye." The millionaire fell to his knees, an unthinkable gesture for a man of his power and composure. His trembling hands reached for the girl's, holding them as if they were the most precious thing in the world. "Your mother." His voice failed, choked with emotion. "Did she sing a song about stars? A specific song before you went to sleep?" The girl's eyes widened. "Yes, the 5 Little Stars song." "How do you know?" Tears now flowed freely from under the millionaire's dark glasses. The assistant, realizing the magnitude of the moment, retreated discreetly out of the room, closing the door to give them privacy. "Because I composed that song," he replied, his voice broken by emotion. "For my daughter I never met. For you." The news spread through the company hallways like wildfire, first in cautious whispers, then in open conversations in the corridors. The powerful blind millionaire had found a daughter he didn't know existed, a child who lived on the streets under a bridge. In the main office, doctors and lawyers had been called in urgently. The little beggar girl, now bathed and dressed in clean clothes provided by the assistant, watched with wide eyes the whirlwind of activity around her. The guardian teddy bear, still without his second eye, remained firmly pressed against her chest. "We need a DNA test immediately," the millionaire instructed his personal lawyer, while a gentle doctor collected a sample from the child's cheek. "And I want a full investigation. Who lied about her death, how she ended up on the streets, everything." The girl, sitting quietly on a sofa too big for her small body, absorbed every word, every gesture. A subtle transformation was already beginning to occur in her posture. She was still a street child, but now there was a spark of hope in her eyes, previously dulled by the despair of daily survival. "Are you hungry?" asked the millionaire, sitting next to her, his voice softening completely when he addressed the little one. She nodded, then, remembering that he couldn't see, replied timidly, "Yes, sir." "Don't call me sir," he asked with a sad smile. "I don't know yet. We're not sure, but if what I suspect is true, you can call me." The words died in his throat. It was too early, too hasty. The test had not yet confirmed what his heart already knew. While the assistant provided a full meal for the girl, the head of security entered the office hastily, his face revealing important news. "Sir, we found something on the security recordings from the St. Clair shelter from 6 years ago." The name of the shelter made the millionaire tense visibly. The shelter where the donation was supposed to go today. Exactly. In the recordings, we see your Ms. Anna entering the shelter, clearly in labor, supported by a woman we identified as her sister, Beatrice. The millionaire paled at the mention of his sister's name. "My own sister." Continue. "A few hours later, Ms. Beatrice leaves alone. There is no record of Anna or a child leaving. But 3 days later, a shelter employee registers the entry of an abandoned baby girl without identification. The girl ate silently, but her attentive eyes did not miss a word of the conversation. Although she did not understand all the details, she understood the essential. Those people were talking about her past, about how she had ended up alone in the world. The millionaire rose, his fists clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. "My sister told me that Anna died in childbirth, that my daughter died with her. I was in the hospital, newly blind, unable to verify it myself." "Sir," interjected the lawyer, "if your sister falsified death certificates, that's a serious crime." "That doesn't matter now," the millionaire cut him off. "What matters is that for 6 years, my daughter lived as an orphan, then as a homeless person, while I drowned my guilt in work and anonymous donations." The team exchanged worried glances. They had never seen their boss so emotionally exposed, so viscerally shaken. The calculating and cold man they knew had disappeared, replaced by a father devastated by the loss of irretrievable time. The doctor approached respectfully. "We did a preliminary exam on the girl. In addition to malnutrition and minor health issues that are easily treatable, she has a rather distinctive birthmark at the base of her neck." The millionaire turned sharply. "A crescent moon-shaped mark?" "Exactly. How did you know?" "Anna had an identical one, and I saw the same mark on my daughter in the few ultrasounds I attended before the accident. At the other end of the city, in an elegant but discreet mansion, Beatrice received a call that made her pale. She hung up the phone with trembling fingers and immediately began to pack her bags. Her normally confident expression now reflected pure panic. 6 years of lies were about to collapse. Back in the office, the little one finally finished her meal, the first full meal in years. Her eyes were heavy with sleep and emotional exhaustion. Realizing this, the millionaire asked them to prepare a place for her to rest. "You must be exhausted," he said gently. You've had a day full of surprises and emotions. The girl hesitated, an old fear reflecting in her eyes. When I wake up, will you still be here? The question, so simple and so profound, hit the millionaire like a physical blow. How many times had that child fallen asleep, afraid of waking up even more alone? How many losses had she experienced in her short life? Kneeling in front of her, he took her small hands in his. I promise that when you wake up, I'll be here, and you'll never have to worry about being alone again. Uduln. While the child was taken to rest in a comfortable adjoining room, the lawyer approached with a grave expression. Sir, we have a problem. Your sister has emptied her bank accounts, and there are indications that she is about to leave the country. Furthermore, the company's board of directors is meeting in emergency session. Apparently, some members believe that your emotional state makes you temporarily unfit to lead. The millionaire smiled, a cold smile that made the lawyer recoil instinctively. Let my sister flee. She won't get far. As for the board, maybe it's time to remind those gentlemen who really holds the reins of this company. In the next room, the girl fell asleep in a soft armchair, the guardian teddy bear safe in her arms. For the first time in years, her sleep was not light and vigilant, ready to wake up at the slightest danger. It was deep, secure, cradled by the promise that upon waking, she would no longer be alone. The soft light of dawn filtered through the curtains when the girl awoke, momentarily disoriented by the unusual comfort around her. For an instant, panic washed over her. Where was the noise of the cars, the damp smell of the bridge, the hardness of the cardboard under her body? Then the memories of the previous day returned in a cascade. The briefcase, the money, the blind millionaire, the guardian teddy bear and its lost eye, the revelation that had transformed her life in a matter of hours. With a racing heart, she sat up in the soft armchair, squeezing the teddy bear against her chest. Do you think he's still here, brother? She whispered, the promise of the night before still fresh in her memory, but tempered by the skepticism of someone who had faced many disappointments. As if in response to her doubt, the door opened gently. The millionaire entered, guided by the assistant. Despite the dark glasses, there was something different in his expression, a combination of exhaustion and serenity, as if he had spent the night in a battle and emerged victorious. Good morning, he said with a tired smile. Did you sleep well? The girl nodded, then, remembering his blindness again, replied, Yes, very well. The chair is soft like clouds. Armchair, he corrected gently. And you deserve much more than a comfortable armchair to sleep in. The assistant approached with a breakfast tray, fresh fruit, bread, juice, foods that the girl rarely tasted, and some she didn't even recognize. Her eyes widened at the abundance. All this is for me? All this and much more, confirmed the millionaire, sitting in a nearby chair. But before you eat, I have something important to tell you. The girl lowered her gaze to the teddy bear, a gesture of seeking security that did not go unnoticed. The tests arrived this morning, he continued, his voice controlled but vibrating with contained emotion. The DNA confirms what my heart already knew. You are my daughter. The words hung in the air between them, laden with meaning, with possibilities, with a future that neither of them had dared to imagine just 24 hours before. That means that you're my father? Asked the girl, testing the new reality aloud. Yes, his voice faltered slightly. It means that you will never be alone again. It means that I have 6 years of absence to make up for. And it means, his hand found the small plastic eye in his pocket, that we can finally fix Guardian. Carefully, he handed the eye to the girl, who received it as if it were a precious jewel. For a few minutes, while she tried to fit the piece into the teddy bear, Silence reigned in the room, punctuated only by the soft sounds of her efforts. "Is it okay like this?" she finally asked, holding the restored toy so that her father could see. He reached out, touching the teddy bear delicately. "Perfect. Now he can see for both of us." In the main meeting room of the building, a storm was brewing. The board of directors, led by Gus, the vice president and the millionaire's cousin, argued heatedly. "He's completely lost it," exclaimed Gus, gesturing emphatically. "A street kid shows up with a fanciful story, and he immediately believes she's his daughter. This is absurd." "The DNA tests confirmed the kinship," argued the lawyer, maintaining his composure. "And the investigations uncovered substantial evidence of fraud on the part of Ms. Beatrice, who, I might add, fled the country this morning." "That's irrelevant," retorted Gus. "The point is that he is not fit to lead. An emotional decision like this, taking in a street girl without any consideration for the implications." The door opened, interrupting the discussion. The millionaire entered, leaning on his cane, but with a posture that did not demonstrate any fragility. Behind him, to everyone's surprise, came the girl, still in borrowed clothes, but with a noticeably more confident expression. "Gentlemen," began the millionaire, his voice cold as steel. New people still made her anxious, a reflection of the years on the streets, where strangers often meant danger or rejection. Noticing her hesitation, her father reached out, finding her hand with surprising precision for someone blind. "It's okay to be scared," he assured her, "but these are special people, people who, like me, had their lives transformed when they learned about you." 2 hours later, a luxurious, adapted van parked in front of a large building on the outskirts of the city, the colorful facade decorated with children's drawings and the inscription "St. Clair Shelter" contrasted with the gray day. "Is this it?" asked the girl, her voice almost a whisper, recognizing the name of the place mentioned in the investigations about her past. "Yes," confirmed her father, "the place where the donation was supposed to go. The place where you were born." The words hung between them, laden with meaning. For the girl, it was like closing a circle that she didn't even know was open, returning to the starting point of her journey, but now with a purpose and identity. Inside the shelter, children of various ages played, studied, or simply watched. The visitors with curiosity. The director, a middle-aged lady with kind eyes, greeted them at the entrance. "It is an honor to finally meet you in person," she said to the millionaire, extending her hand, which he shook after a brief moment of orientation. "Your donations have been the lifeline of this institution for years." "The real pleasure is mine," he replied. Then, with a gentle gesture, he introduced his daughter. "And this is the real reason for our visit today." The director looked at the girl with a mixture of emotions, recognition, joy, and a shadow of guilt. "You've grown so much," she commented, kneeling to be at the child's eye level. "I was here the day you arrived." The girl squeezed her father's hand, seeking security. "Do you remember me?" asked the director, not really expecting an affirmative answer. To everyone's surprise, the girl tilted her head as if examining a distant and hazy memory. "You sang," she said finally. "You sang when I cried." Tears formed in the director's eyes. "Yes, I sang. Every night. You were always special, even among so many children who passed through here." The true purpose of the visit began to reveal itself when the millionaire explained his new project, a massive expansion of the shelter, with modern facilities, specialized staff, and more importantly, a revolutionary program to prevent children from ending up on the streets. "My daughter went through something that no child should ever experience," he explained, his hand still firmly holding the little ones. "I want her story, our story, to serve as a catalyst for change, and I would like her to be part of that process, to understand that her suffering was not in vain." While the adults discussed the details of the project, the girl was given permission to meet the other children at the shelter. Initially hesitant, she soon found herself in the middle of a curious circle, answering questions about the guardian teddy bear and her new life. "Is it true that you lived under a bridge?" asked a boy of about her age. She nodded without shame or showmanship. It was simply her story. "Yes, for a long time. Guardian and I protected each other." "And now you're rich?" questioned another child, eyes wide. The question made the girl pause, considering her new financial reality for the first time. "I guess so," she replied finally, "but the most important thing is that I'm not alone anymore." Back in the director's office, the millionaire finalized the details of the project. "I want the new complex to be named in honor of her mother," he explained, "the Anna Child Protection Center, and I want it to be just the first of many." Theo, director, still emotional, nodded. "It will be an honor, and I'm sure your daughter will find healing by participating in this project, by seeing other children being saved from the fate she almost had." When it was time to leave, the girl surprised everyone. Instead of simply saying goodbye, she approached her father with a serious expression, almost adult in her determination. "Dad," she began, the words still sounding new on her lips, "can I give guardian to one of the children here?" The request left the millionaire momentarily speechless. That teddy bear had been his daughter's only constant companion during years of loneliness and deprivation. It was more than a toy. It was a symbol of survival, a friend in the darkest hours. "Are you sure?" he asked softly. "Guardian is very special to you." The girl looked at the toy in her arms, now with its two restored eyes. "Yes, I have you now, but there's a boy here who doesn't have anyone. He needs guardian more than I do." At that moment, the millionaire understood the true dimension of the treasure he had found. "I appreciate your concern for my mental state, but I assure you it is perfectly fine. What is not perfect is the loyalty of some present." A tense silence fell over the room. The girl remained close to her father, attentively observing each adult face, assessing allies and enemies with the insight of someone who survived alone on the streets. "As you all know, I hold 63% of the shares in this company. We do not need consensus for the decisions I will be making next." Gus paled. "What decisions?" "First, I'm creating a new foundation with half of the company's annual profits dedicated to children in vulnerable situations. Second, I'm temporarily stepping down from the presidency to dedicate myself to adapting my daughter, yes, my daughter, to her new life. Third, you, Gus, are fired." The room exploded in protests and exclamations of surprise. The girl recoiled slightly, frightened by the noise, but her father placed his hand protectively on her shoulder. "It's okay," he assured her. "Sometimes adults forget how to behave properly." That observation, made in a calm but audible tone, for everyone, produced an immediate effect. The room quieted down, and several counselors looked ashamed. "During my temporary absence, Helena will assume the presidency," continued the millionaire, indicating his assistant. "She knows this company as well as I do and has my full confidence." No one protested. The decision, although surprising, made sense to most. Helena had effectively managed many aspects of the company in recent years, discreetly compensating for the boss's visual limitations without ever compromising his authority. "As for my daughter," he continued, his tone softening, "she will need time to adjust to her new reality. I ask that you respect her privacy and her space." The meeting was adjourned shortly thereafter, leaving behind a mixture of shock, resignation, and in some cases, genuine joy at the unexpected family reunion. Helena remained to finalize some details, while the millionaire guided his daughter back to the office. "Those men don't like me," observed the girl as soon as they were alone. "They don't like change," he corrected gently. And you, my little one, are the biggest change this company has ever seen. She considered this for a moment, hugging the newly fixed teddy bear. What happens now? The millionaire knelt to be at her eye level, a symbolic gesture considering his blindness, but powerful in its intent. Now our journey begins. We have a house to decorate together, a history to build, a past to heal. It won't always be easy, but I promise we'll be together every step of the way. The girl looked at her teddy bear, now with two bright eyes. Guardian can see everything again now. He says he's happy. The millionaire smiled, tears streaming freely from under his dark glasses. I am too, little one. I am too. 3 weeks had passed since the extraordinary day when a lost briefcase reunited two souls separated by fate. The millionaire's mansion, once a mausoleum of marble and silence, now vibrated with a renewed energy, even if still hesitant and in adaptation. The girl's room, formerly an impersonal guest room, had been transformed into a space that reflected her emerging personality. The walls, once white, now displayed a mural of painted stars, some perfect, others clearly made by inexperienced childish hands, but all shining in their own way. On a Saturday morning, as the winter sun created patterns of light on the hardwood floor, the little one sat on the bed, watching her father who, sitting in a nearby armchair, listened attentively as she read aloud. The reading was slow, interspersed with hesitations. Learning to read formally at 6 years old, after spending most of her life on the streets, was a considerable challenge. The princess looked at the sky, she spelled out, with determination, her small finger following each word in the illustrated book. Very good, encouraged her father, a genuine smile lighting up his normally austere face. You're progressing incredibly fast. The girl's education was a priority. A tutor came daily for personalized lessons, helping her catch up on lost time. The social worker, assigned by the court to monitor the case, marveled at the child's adaptability. It was as if, despite all the traumas, she had only been waiting for the opportunity to blossom. What are we going to do today? Asked the girl, closing the book after finishing the page. I thought of a surprise, replied the millionaire, something I've been planning since you arrived. Curiosity sparkled in the child's eyes. A surprise? What is it? If I tell you, it wouldn't be a surprise anymore, would it? He teased gently. But I can say that it involves meeting people who are very eager to meet you. The enthusiasm on the girl's face diminished slightly. His daughter, despite everything she had gone through, or perhaps because of it, possessed a capacity for empathy and generosity that many adults would never attain. That's a beautiful decision, he replied, his voice choked with emotion. Guardian will be an excellent friend to that boy, just as he was to you. Under the emotional gaze of the adults present, the little one walked to a quiet and withdrawn boy who watched everything from afar, without participating in the games. His sad eyes reminded her of herself, not long ago. Hi, she said, approaching, carefully so as not to scare him. This is Guardian. He takes care of those who are alone. The boy looked suspiciously, without extending his hands to receive the gift. Perceiving his hesitation, she continued, He only has 2 eyes again because my dad found the one that was missing. Before, he was like us. He was incomplete. But now he can see everything. He will protect you at night. Slowly, almost reverently, the boy extended his hands and accepted the teddy bear. A small smile, perhaps the first in a long time, lit up his face. Thank you, he whispered, hugging the toy against his chest exactly as she used to do. On the way back, the millionaire felt his daughter's small hand seeking his. Are you sad that you gave Guardian away? He asked gently. She considered the question for a moment, A little bit, but I'm also happy. It's like a good light in here, she explained, placing her hand over her chest. The father smiled, recognizing in the child's simple words a wisdom that many adults never reach. That's called generosity. It's one of the greatest treasures someone can have. The van continued through the city, now bathed in the light of the setting sun. Two beings that fate had separated and reunited, rebuilding together the meaning of family, home, and purpose. A year had passed since the extraordinary day when a lost briefcase had forever changed the destiny of two lonely souls. The Millionaire's mansion, once a cold and silent space, now overflowed with life and warmth. In the large garden, decorated with colorful lanterns and elegantly prepared tables, the girl's 7th birthday was celebrated, the first celebrated with a real party. Children from the St. Clair shelter, now expanded and renovated thanks to the Anna Child Protection Center project, ran and played among the adult guests, filling the air with laughter that sounded like music to the host's ears. The millionaire, sitting on a bench under an old tree, absorbed the sounds of the celebration. His ears, sharpened by years of blindness, easily identified his daughter's crystal-clear laughter amidst the cheerful confusion. A soft smile lit up his face before perpetually serious. "It's being an absolute success," commented Helena, approaching with 2 glasses of champagne. She handed one to the ex-boss and now close friend, guiding his hand to receive it. "She deserves this and much more," he replied, raising his glass in a silent toast. "Sometimes I wonder who saved whom in this story." Helena smiled, observing the extraordinary transformation that had occurred in both the man and the child during that year of living together. The girl, once fragile and distrustful, now radiated confidence and joy. She had made up for lost time academically with surprising speed, demonstrating a sharp intelligence that she had certainly inherited from her father. As for the millionaire, the change was equally profound. The bitter and isolated man, who used his disability as a shield against the world, now actively participated in the community. The Anna Center project had been only the beginning. His fortune, previously directed mainly towards the expansion of business, now served a greater purpose. "Dad! Dad!" The birthday girl's lively voice interrupted the conversation. She approached, running, followed by several other children. "Can I show my friends the music room, please?" He smiled, reaching out to touch his daughter's face, a gesture that had become a special form of communication between them. "Of course you can. Just be careful with the piano." The girl nodded, then remembering her father's blindness, responded, "Verbally, I promise. We're just going to look, not touch." As the group of children walked away towards the house, Helena noticed her friend's pensive look. "A penny for your thoughts?" "I was just reflecting on how much she's changed and how much she's remained the same. All that toughness that life on the streets imposed, and yet the ability to trust, to love, to open up to new experiences. Children are surprisingly resilient," observed Helena, "and she had you to help her heal." "We had each other," he corrected softly. "Every nightmare I comforted, every school progress we celebrated, every small victory were steps we took together." The party continued until twilight, when Japanese lanterns were lit, creating a magical atmosphere in the garden. The moment for the cake and gifts arrived, and the girl, dressed in an elegant sky blue dress, her favorite color, blew out the candles to enthusiastic applause. Among the many gifts, one stood out particularly: a small velvet box delivered personally by her father. "What is it?" she asked, curious, as her small fingers opened the gift. Inside the box rested a delicate gold locket in the shape of a heart. When opened, it revealed 2 photographs. On one side, an old photo recovered of her mother, on the other, a recent one of her with her father. "So you always know that no matter where you are, you will never be alone again," he explained, helping her put on the necklace. Silent tears streamed down the girl's face as she hugged her father with all the strength her little arms could muster. The guests watched emotionally that pure demonstration of love, many disguising their own tears. Later, when the party had ended and the house had finally quieted down, father and daughter sat on the porch, observing, he through his other senses, she with attentive eyes, the starry sky above them. "Dad," she began, her voice soft in the stillness of the night, "do you remember that briefcase with money?" "How could I forget?" he replied, smiling. "It's what brought us together. Sometimes I think, what if I had kept the money? Or what if I had never found the briefcase?" The millionaire considered the question for a moment, appreciating the depth of thought that his daughter often demonstrated. "I believe there are greater forces guiding our paths," he replied finally. "Maybe we would have met in another way at another time, but I am eternally grateful that it happened the way it did." The girl nodded, absorbing the words. "You know what I think?" she asked, looking at the locket that she now carried close to her heart. "I think the real treasure was never the money in the briefcase." The father smiled, deeply touched by the wisdom of that observation. "And what was the real treasure, my little philosopher?" "Us," she replied simply. "Our family, being together." He extended his arm and she snuggled against his chest, the warmth of her small body, a constant reminder of the miracle that they had found in each other. Above them, the stars shone in the night sky, the same stars from the song he had composed years ago for a daughter he feared he would never meet, the same stars that had witnessed nights of loneliness under a cold bridge, the same stars that now blessed their shared journey. "Dad," she whispered, already half asleep, "I think Mom is looking down on us from up there, among the stars." With his throat tight with emotion, he kissed the top of his daughter's head, gently. "I'm sure she is, my love. I'm absolutely sure she is." And so, under the starry cloak of the night, two souls once lost in the darkness of loneliness finally found their home, not in the walls of a luxurious mansion, but in each other, in the love that had transcended abandonment, lies, time, and pain. The real treasure, after all, was never hidden in a briefcase, but in the honest heart of a little beggar girl who, even having nothing, knew how to give everything she possessed. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive new stories every day.